Alrighty, here we are in week 10. This is the week that we discuss libido. I did not write the objectives here, but for today, just know that we will be going over the 4 stages of arousal. And we will also go over basically what to expect during each phase of your cycle. And with those objectives, you want to be able to pinpoint, like to know where you are in your cycle and be like, this is a normal, not behavior, but a normal occurrence like this, right? We want to be able to reduce this mind game of something is wrong with me, right? We don't want to continue to think that there is nothing wrong with you. We want to try to rewrite that narrative. We want to be empowered women who know, this makes sense. I'm at this part of my cycle. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. This is a totally normal occurrence, okay? The other thing that we'll talk about are nutrients that'll help support your libido and orgasm, okay? I do feel like there's a little bit more, which is funny because, again, what I just told you, like there might be too much information in these. I do feel like there's more, but I'm going to try to learn how to do a little bit less. This is also like a very, this is a trait of mine. I like to go over the top in my workouts and everything. So trying to just kind of pull back and give really just the most important bits and pieces. We'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes. All right, so libido. Libido is going to be, right, your sex drive. How into sex are you? How great is your desire? Where is your desire on a scale of like 1 to 10? When we are looking to focus in on our libido, it's going to really primarily be about biohacking. And truly everything that you've learned in this course is really biohacking. It's how are you bit by bit managing your body, your biology, right? That is biohacking. Through biohacking, you can possibly increase your sex drive, you can increase pleasure, right? And you can improve your orgasms, which is like, that's wonderful. I think also, like, as we go through life, those things can happen as we become like more and more comfortable in our bodies, right? But there are some tools, AKA how you would pair your cycle with your expectations, along with the nutrients, to improve sex drive, pleasure, and your orgasms. The bonus of biohacking here is that it's also going to improve your relationship with yourself, right? As does cycle syncing, as does really beginning to understand your cycle and where your body is and having these realistic expectations. The other cool part is that it could also potentially improve your relationship with your partner. And I will just start off by saying, if you can get your partner in the bubble of awareness of like where you are in your cycle, along with kind of these natural expectations of like, hey, I'm going to be more social this time. I'm going to be a little bit more introverted at this time. I'm going to be, as you'll learn, wetter here. I'm going to be a little bit more dry here. When your partner knows these things, it's like you're both knowledgeable. You're both like not wondering like, is he bothered because you're dry? Does he think you're not turned on? No, it's just because of where you are in your cycle, right? So like him having that awareness is super important. I should say they having that awareness is super important as well, right? Just 2 studies that I do want to bring up. They're kind of old at this point, but in 2015, there was a survey through Healthy Women, and 60% of women weren't happy or weren't satisfied with their sex lives. And that was that they actually, like two reasons. They weren't getting enough sex, and the sex that they were getting, they weren't happy with it. And I think there's a plethora of reasons for that. But I mean, there's got to come a point in time where we're like, we've got to just be, we deserve happiness, right? We do, we deserve happiness. And sex is a huge part of our existence. And so we have a chance here in this cycle syncing method, in this like monitoring of your body, knowing more and more about your body, to really step into a greater area of pleasure, a greater area of abundance. And if you fully utilize the things that you learned today, that is all possible. It's all available to you. You do have to be a willing participant. It doesn't just happen, right? Again, this all takes work, right? The other interesting study is that in 2017, Archives of Sexual Behavior found that Americans are having less sex than they did 10 years ago. In fact, they found that people born in the 1930s were having more sex than millennials and the generation after millennials, right? That's crazy. That to me screams that people are too busy, right? We're too busy. We're too involved with like computers and social media and whatnot. There's also, the truth behind it, right? I mean, I strive to be a super independent woman. I'm like, I don't fucking need you. I'm gonna do my own thing, right? Like, so I think there's a lot of that as well. Women who, and we'll learn about this next week, women who are very much so in that masculine energy of like, I don't need you. I don't need to soften. I don't need to, like, I can do this all on my own. So yeah, people, our great grandparents are having more sex than we are. So that's wild. Stepping right on in, we're going into the 4 stages of arousal. So this is really important. The 4 stages are tumescence, orgasmic plateau, climax, and refractory period. Men have some of that. I would say that men have most of it, but they can kind of like skip through some of those. And we can skip through some of those too, but they actually, like if we skip through them, we don't have as beautiful of an experience. We don't reap as many benefits. The act of sex actually provides a ton of benefits to our brain chemistry, so our neurochemistry, our biology, our like general well-being, right? And if we are just rushing through it because society has taught us, whether it's through like watching porn or just romantic, even like romantic movies, people have sex and all of a sudden she's coming right away, right? Like she's like within seconds, she's coming. That's not reality. That's not actually how it works. There's a sequence of events. There are these stages that if we allow ourselves time and space to pass through, we not only have a great sensation, great sensations, but we actually reap a lot of benefits, and we'll learn about those benefits as we go through each of these stages. But like, let's just say right now, we have to stop expecting ourselves, if you still believe this, that you're going to come or climax right away. It's just not going to, like, that's not a normal thing. And if it does happen for you, then that's also fine. But for a majority of women, that is not going to be the case. It takes time. And as you'll learn, there's a recommendation that you stay in one of these stages for about 20 minutes. And like, I mean, for some of us, right, that might be a very different situation than what we're normally experiencing, right? Part of the reason that like I want to stress the importance of this, of like learning these 4 stages, and that it's okay to not come right away, is that there is guilt, shame, and story associated with, oh my God, I'm taking so long. He's bored. He's working so hard. Da, da, da. Like he's not into it anymore. Those are stories. And we actually kind of feed into them because we either fake it or we like say it doesn't matter or whatever. Like we kind of brush it to the side. So we have to be an active participant as well in rewriting that story of like, I take a little bit longer than you. Awesome, let's go. Like, let's see what this is like, you know? And also like in communication with your partner, they probably have those same stories. So this is like a great chance to help your partner rewrite their stories. He's not doing anything wrong because it took X amount of time, right? It's literally your biological process, your biochemistry. So here we are in the first stage of arousal, and that's tumescence. This is very new to me, but tumescence is basically engorgement, right? It's the natural process of engorgement, and it is the beginning of arousal. When we use a vibrator, oftentimes we kind of basically skip over tumescence. Like it does happen a bit, but if you allow yourself to naturally, like without a vibrational toy, and believe me, I'm not saying don't use toys. We'll talk about toys. But if we rely on them all the time, it is false that you'll become desensitized. That's been a thing that goes around. It is false. I will say that toys tend to have some weird plastics and whatnot. So if you're worried about endocrine disruptors, you might want to like really kind of think about those types of things and switch over to glass. I will say I have glass. I have like a silicone based vibrator as well. I use them both, but like to maybe just not be so reliant on the one that is manufactured with possible endocrine disruptors. When we skip over to tumescence, we're just kind of feeding into this idea of I've got to come right away, right? I think there's a time and a place for it, but if we allow ourselves space to kind of slow down every once in a while, tumescence is a beautiful experience. This is the natural first phases of arousal. So in arousal, you'll experience, an increase in your heartbeat, faster breathing, your blood pressure naturally rises, your desire for sex, you've already maybe possibly had it, but now it increases because your limbic system starts releasing neurochemicals where you're just like, oh, now like, you just feel yourself like kick up, right? You want a little bit more. Nitric oxide is increasing the blood flow to your genitals. So with that, that's going to allow for that engorgement, right? Your clitoris actually becomes larger. And I didn't write this on the slides, but very, very interesting fact I find is that the clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings. That's two times, as many as a male penis. That's wild. 8,000, and it's 2 times as many as a male penis. Pretty freaking awesome, in my opinion. Also, which makes it like, it can be highly sensitive. There's 8,000 nerve endings, right? Yeah. So again, stop the shame, stop the like any story about like, oh, that was too much, and like being like, why am I not into it anymore? It's because it's got 8,000 nerve endings, and your body's just like, stop, just stop. Cool part about that is we'll learn that like you can stop for a little bit, those nerve endings will calm down, and then you could continue. During tumescence, that's when your natural lubrication will begin to be produced. As you'll learn, there are certain phases of your cycle where you won't produce quite as much. Okay. You might also, your nipples may harden and breasts may swell as well. Okay. So those are like just natural pieces that come together when we are going through tumescence, which is leading to arousal. That is the start of arousal. The other piece that I do want to talk about real quick is that when nitric oxide is released, because of that, that's kind of increasing the blood flow. That alone, and this is again, it kind of feeds into this whole like now you want more. Your body, specifically your genitals, but really your whole body becomes that much more responsive to touch. It's just, it's all this beautiful magic that happens, right? Everything, they're all linked. All these different chemicals are linked. The next phase of the of stages of arousal is orgasmic plateau. So you're in it, you're foreplay, we'll say. Arousal is continuing to rise. You're going to maybe possibly get some flushness. So that could be, yes, cheeks, your chest, right? Then also specifically your labia actually change in color. They turn into like a deeper red, right? They're kind of like pale, and they actually turn into a deeper red. I thought that was really cool. I didn't personally know that. It's not like I'm looking down there as like I'm becoming aroused of like, hey, oh wow, look, it's like a magic ring. It just changed color. That's not what I'm doing, but it's kind of cool, right? Also really interesting is that the vaginal opening actually narrows, but the area of your vaginal canal closest to the cervix tightens. And that's all to just increase the pleasure that you're going to feel. The body naturally does that. How cool is that? In your brain, your pleasure centers, the activity there increases. That makes sense. But also really wild is that your sense of anxiety decreases drastically. Pretty cool. Epinephrine and dopamine increase. Your clitoris becomes hypersensitive. That makes sense. And then muscle contractions also begin to happen. That's going to be vaginal. It could be your hands. It could be your feet. Your back could arch. These are all natural contractions that happen. Okay. We have another slide with this as well. So this is the key piece, right? So we go from tumescence, and now we're in that orgasmic plateau. The next phase is going to be climax. That's when you come. You may want to explore trying to stay in this stage longer. And we call that edging. So basically, you've been turned on and you're getting close to climax, and then ask your partner to back off. Or if you're self-pleasuring, you back off. And then you increase again, you get close, 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 and then you back off. This is called edging. This like wave of like almost there, back it off, almost there, back it off. That's edging. With edging, if you can stay in this like closer towards like 20 minutes, you reap this, all of these benefits, but a little bit more. So as we climax, you're going to reap these benefits. But again, if you can edge, if you can stay here for a longer period of time, you get more of these benefits. These benefits include flushing cortisol, okay? Improving your period. What I mean by that is less PMS symptoms, less cramping. It could help balance out your hormones. It will, in fact, anytime we climax, that's happening. So if your period, if your blood color is a little different than that bright red, bright cranberry red, it could improve that. Improve fertility, could regulate ovulation, and wildly enough, it's going to help improve immune function. All by staying in this orgasmic plateau a little bit longer. So if you feel like you're getting sick, be like, either with yourself or your partner, hey, we just need to stay here for 20 minutes, about 2 times a week. 2 times a week. Let's make that happen. Okay. All right. Sounds good. The next phase of arousal, the next stage, I should say, is climax. This lasts mere seconds in comparison to the other pieces. It's like just done so fast. We already talked about the 8,000 nerve endings, but when we climax, that's the clitoris saying like, okay, enough is enough. Done. Oxytocin, serotonin, and DHEA spike. When those spike, and as you're climaxing, any release of cortisol is blunted. So you will have, right, we said we flushed out cortisol. So not only did cortisol get flushed out in that previous stage, but now like no cortisol will be released at this point. Just a reminder, cortisol is not bad. We do need cortisol, but I don't want it to be like a bad guy. And again, this is also when you're climaxing or when you're coming, you might also experience some like spasms. So you might get like tight fists, or your toes might curl, or your feet might flex, but also you'll have muscular spasms of the vaginal canal. Okay. The last phase, which I don't think is really spoken about all that often, is the refractory period. And this is when you're just like literally laying in the afterglow. You feel high. Your body was just so revved up. Everything was spiked, heart rate, breath, blood pressure. And now everything starts to come back down. Interesting though, is your cervix actually remains open for about we'll say up to a half hour after climax. And that's, for the ability for sperm to be able to travel up there, right? We are designed to procreate whether or not we want to or not. Our body is like, it's designed for that. So that your cervix actually stays open for about a half hour, up to a half hour after climax. Again, the interesting piece with refractory period, in my opinion, is once men climax, they enter a refractory period, and then that's it. If they want to go again, if they want to become erect again, if they want to climax again, usually they have to wait a substantial amount of time. There's some rare cases, right? But usually they have to wait a substantial amount of time. Women, once we'll say clitoral nerves, once they calm down, you're good to go. And that doesn't take very long. That we can actually like cycle through many times, many times, if we want to. There's no pressure. It's not best to be able to go many times, but if we wanted to, we can, right? So say, we'll talk about receiving. Say you didn't actually get to climax, but he did. Let your body chill for a little bit and then go about some foreplay, right? He might be out of commission with his, if I'm assuming, this is so wrong of me in this day and age, but assuming male partners, but your partner might be done, but you could keep going, right? Let's say that. Times have changed. I got to get with it. Okay. So how do we optimize orgasm? By working with your cycle. This is like one of the key takeaways of this lecture. We as women literally have things that change week to week, right? It affects so many things. We've learned about all of that. It's going to affect your mood, your productivity, your patience, your ability to concentrate, your appetite, how many calories you want, right? We are beginning to really learn how all of those bits and pieces are affected by our cycle, where we are in our cycle. It also affects your sex life, and it's going to specifically affect your stages of arousal, what those look like, right? Your interest in sex and the intensity of your orgasms. It is not realistic to think that we can always be on. We are not designed that way. Men can pretty much go all the time, right? They pretty much want sex all the time. It is normal that we do not want sex all the time, or that our sex drive is not peaked all the time. It would be normal for it to kind of ebb and flow. Okay. If we find that it's just non-existent, the route that we should go is go back. Okay, what other signs and symptoms am I experiencing? Because there's got to be something else going on in regards to your systems of elimination, or say your adrenals, or maybe your blood sugar is out of balance, or maybe you're way stressed out. Maybe you've got way too much on your plate, because stress is basically the #1 killer of sex drive, right? So if you've got way too much, if you have past trauma, say somebody in your family died, somebody very close, that could cause your sex drive to just totally go ghost if you have not sat and processed it, right? If you bottle it up, it's going to be near impossible to connect with your sex drive to your body, because you've got this like deeper thing kind of eating away at you, right? So we do, if those types of things, if our sex drive is constantly just gone, we do need to examine, are there some other psychological things going on that actually have nothing to do with sex, but are there other things that are eating away at my soul right now? If so, therapy, journaling, meditation. What are your tools to help you unravel that? What are your tools to help dig into that? If it's something hormonal, we'll know, because we now know the symptoms of what appear during each of those pieces of dysregulation. So then going back and trying to piece those together, okay? Also ask yourself, like, we'll learn, but ask yourself in your luteal phase, are there recurring patterns that are coming up, or recurring thoughts that are coming up with regards to this partner? Am I truly not happy? And we'll talk about that, okay? Our needs, emotions, energy, and desires all fluctuate week to week. We're never the same person week to week. Beautiful thing. Not consistent, and that's okay, okay? When we know how our biochemistry works, we can eliminate the guilt, the shame, and the stories that like something is wrong with me. Why don't I have a sex drive right now? Why am I dry right now? If we really begin to understand our cycle and our biochemistry, we can alleviate these stories and like free ourselves from guilt and shame, which is a really beautiful thing. These little periods of time aren't that long. They're just like really a mere couple of days. And there's nothing wrong with us. It's natural to dip into some dryness or to dip into a lower sex drive. Totally normal. Okay. This is, again, just a reminder, inform your partner of your cycle, where you are and what's normal, what's expected. And then they can be like, cool, you're in your follicular phase. That means novelty. You don't want to have sex right now because your hormones are low. So let's go try something new. Let's go check out a new exhibit, right? There's other ways to have a sexual energy. It doesn't actually always have to be in the bedroom. This is where we'll go into each of your phases and kind of a bit of what's expected, okay? So phase 1, and remember, Elisa Vitti had power. We've gone over this weeks ago, but power, POWR. So each one of these, we have prepare, we have open up, we have work, and then we have rest. That's power, okay? So follicular phase, 7 to 10 days. It's going to be right after you bleed. And the cyclical focus here is novelty. And this applies in the bedroom and not, right? This is when we are most open to newness. This is when we want to maybe read new books, experience new things in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom. Your sex hormones, specifically estrogen and testosterone, those are your sex hormones, they are at their lowest right here. Estrogen is actually what gets you wet. That is what increases cervical fluid. So if it's low, you can expect yourself to be dry. So immediately after your period, expect yourself to be dry. I'm not saying like dry as a desert, but not as wet as you possibly could be. And there, of course, will always be exceptions, but grab the lube, whatever that is, grab the lube. If you're feeling dry, don't hesitate. Again, informing your partner that this is a time that I might naturally be more dry. He won't think, hey, she's not turned on. You can still be turned on, right? I will say that your desire might be a bit lower here because your sex hormones are lower, but sometimes foreplay changes that, right? And again, I just said this, but the focus is on newness, and that's going to be inside the bedroom and outside of it. So if we're talking specifically about in the bedroom, there could be, new ways of foreplay. There could be role play. There could be a new location, go rent a hotel room somewhere for a night, just like do something new, right? Go to a new place for a date and have that be a whole new experience. Is there anything else? Oh, let's say this too. There are 2 dry phases throughout your cycle. This is one of them. Okay, so follicular phase would be one of your dry phases. Yeah, cool. That is that. Moving on to phase 2. This is open up. Ovulatory phase, 3 to 4 days. That's it, 3 to 4 days. The cyclical focus here is receiving, and as it is in life, right? Not just in the bedroom, but in life. Your sex hormones do begin to rise, and as a result, your desire is most likely going to increase. I mean, this is when you're ovulating, so your body is naturally like, give me sperm, let me get pregnant, come on. You have up to 20% more cervical fluid, so this is probably when you would likely be your wettest. I think we all have a very interesting relationship with receiving. I know that I am every single day working on my ability to receive, and for sure have struggled with it in the bedroom. Absolutely. It is getting better as I age, but I should say as I learn and unpack, regardless of age. But it's a good question to ask yourself, and this is in the homework at the end, but like, what is your relationship with receiving? So this is a fantastic time to receive. And your body literally is set up for receiving. It's set up to receive sperm for conception. It's set up to receive attention from others, and it's set up for maximal pleasure. I mean, 20% more cervical fluid. Come on, that's like a game changer, right? There was a study in 2013 that male and female participants looked at women, and when these women were ovulating, facial and voice features, expressions were that much more attractive. So when the women were ovulating, they were more attractive to both male and female participants. When we're ovulating, we literally become more attractive to the world. Again, we're like, people like are attracted to us. They want to come to us. We're not supposed to, but like, that's the receiving, right? Receive that attention. It's coming at you. So again, like, what is your relationship with receiving? I know I've shared this before, but like, when I'm ovulating and I go into a grocery store, I swear it is a very different experience. Very, very, very different. I feel like everyone smiles at me. And I'm not necessarily smiling, but like, once like 3 people smile at me, I'm like, oh, I get what's going on. Like, I know. I don't have like, it's my sign that I'm ovulating without like being fully aware that I'm ovulating. And it's wild. It's so wild. But when we are in this phase, our communication skills go up. We are literally magnetic during this period. It's all energetics. The increase in estrogen equals greater attractiveness, believe it or not. How wild is that? We're naturally more orgasmic during this phase. It seems like I repeated that slide, so let's just double check that. No, did I? Something there is off, but that's okay. So just remember that because our communication does increase during this time, this is a great time to be social, right? You and your partner. So instead of solo dates, go out with a group. That newness as well, like it kind of still lingers over from the previous phase, but your communication is higher. And so this is a great chance also to talk about goals. Like, what are your goals as in your partnership? What are your personal goals in your life? And just, again, helping to increase the bond that the two of you have together, right? Communication peaks during ovulation. So again, a lot of us females, I think, have a hard time expressing what feels good. Let this be a good time to work on that. Give your partner direction. We'll learn next week that too much direction can be like emasculating, but I feel like in the bedroom it's slightly different. But like, this is a great chance to kind of work on that. Okay. The next phase 3, is work. That's your luteal phase, 10 to 14 days. And the focus here is clarity. This is going to be one of the other dry periods, but we'll cut your luteal phase into 2 parts, right? So kind of first half, second half. The second half is when we would maybe experience dryness and a decrease in libido, a decrease in sexual desire. The first part is actually going to be very, very similar to ovulation. You're like pretty much still kind of like in that like juiciness. That's a great word to describe it, but like, yeah, you're still like just like on fire. As estrogen starts to decline in the second half, that's when, again, desire and wetness might decrease. Totally normal. An interesting piece about estrogen is it kind of puts a veil, right? So when we have higher levels of estrogen, we are naturally prone to kind of like make some oversights, right? To not really fully see or feel into what's going on for us. As estrogen starts to decrease, we might feel like we're getting nitpicky, but just pay attention to that nitpickiness. If that's something that is recurring month to month, it's probably worthwhile to dig into. In the second half of our luteal phase, say we're in a relationship that we're like questioning, pay attention in the second half of your luteal phase, what keeps coming up. Because again, we have this like almost like a magic mirror that kind of makes everything seem like really great and glossy in follicular and ovulatory phase, and the first part of luteal. And then once we get into this piece, people will say it's your PMSing, you're moody, whatever. If your hormones are in balance and these things keep coming up, time to kind of redirect, right? Maybe break up. A good time to break up, interesting enough, is during this phase because we have so much clarity. This is when we are most in touch with our natural intuition. I say natural intuition. Intuition is natural, but this is like when we are like very dialed into it. Except for a lot of us aren't, because we've been told that our intuition is like us being crazy and whatnot. So like, what are the practices that you can have in place that can help you dial in your sense of your own intuition, right? Journaling is a fantastic one. You don't have to speak it. You can write it down and like see the month later. Did that thing come up again, right? Did that pattern arise again? Do I feel the same way I felt last time during this month, or this time during last month? The fourth phase is rest. That's your bleed. And this is your recharge time. Some women like to have sex during this time and some do not. Nothing wrong with either way, right? I do know that there are some cultures that I'm specifically right now thinking of yoga. You're not supposed to go upside down, and you're also, it's recommended to not have sex. Whatever your path is, so be it. You aren't going to harm yourself by having sex during this period. You're also not going to harm yourself by not having sex during this period. Something I do think that's worth noting, though, is blood is not a lubricant. Blood actually dries very, very quickly. So when you're bleeding, if you are partaking in sex, it's still possibly a good time to use lubrication. Okay. Just think of like when you get a cut, blood, once it's exposed to oxygen, it turns brown and it dries relatively quickly. Same idea. It's not a lubricant. So if you're feeling dry during sex, use lubricant. If you are somebody who experiences cramping, you might not want anything inside of you, but you could self-pleasure or have your partner pleasure you from the outside and bring you through tumescence, bring you through a nice, beautiful, long orgasmic plateau into climax. And that is actually going to help with any symptoms that you're experiencing, specifically mood and cramps. Okay. This is just a quick little bit about the benefits of self-pleasure. I think we all have a different relationship with it. I grew up in a Catholic household where like I was touching myself at a very young age and was told, you're gross, you're disgusting, stop doing that, da, da, da. And so I definitely had a story that like self-pleasure was bad and I was dirty and I was gross and all this kind of stuff. I've since changed that, but I think it's worthwhile to discuss some of the benefits of self-pleasure. And if you are somebody that has a relationship similar to what I grew up with, I would say exposure therapy is a great approach. So you don't need to sit for 20 minutes, right? You don't need to just try to jump into that, but just like start to touch yourself, start to explore your body, start to get more comfortable with your hands on your body anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be on your genitals, it doesn't have to be on your clitoris, but just start to touch yourself and give yourself small doses of exposure therapy and just know that your body like yearns for that. But some of the benefits of it are it is in fact going to help with the balance of your hormones. When we climax, or even when we are in that orgasmic plateau, or even in the earliest stages of tumescence, when arousal is beginning, neurochemistry, it's being affected in a beautiful way. If you're having a stressed out day, go touch yourself and it's like, it's just changes things, right? It just changes things. It's also going to increase self-awareness of your sexual response. So that's allowing you to be a better director of when you're in partnership. Hey, this feels really good. This doesn't feel so great. I really like it when you do this because I experienced this on my own. Like, hey, can you try this? This felt really good when I did it. Can you try this? Right. So again, giving you a better awareness of like what feels really good in your body and what feels not so good, like what is like a hard no and whatnot. We already discussed this, but it could help with any PMS symptoms, specifically though, mood and cramps. You are going to get a flush of dopamine and serotonin, right? So it's a game changer. If you're like being really kind of moody, go touch yourself. If you're having cramps, touch yourself, right? Bring yourself into that orgasmic plateau. Anytime we have a relationship with our body, we have a chance to improve our self-image, how we see ourselves, right? If you have body dysmorphia, you don't need to be in front of a mirror, but you can touch your body and love on your body and really start to feel into your body in a way that has nothing to do with what it looks like, nor what you think it looks like. So it's a direct path to increasing your self-image, to improving your self-image. You're giving yourself love. A lot of self-image issues come from a belief that we're not worthy or that we are not lovable, and expressing love to yourself in this way is one way to bridge that gap. Okay. Through self-pleasure, we're just going to also increase our sexual functioning. So again, basically kind of like what's grease the wheel, is that the word? This phrase I'm looking for, but just keeping the pipes running, right? Just kind of keeping the pipes running. And again, with all these other pieces, again, you're increasing your sexual awareness. You're going to know exactly what you like, how you like it, when you like it, all of that, right? It feels fantastic. So that's another benefit right there. I think I forgot to list on these slides, and maybe it does come up, but Elisa recommends, and I kind of talked about this a little bit, you're not going to desensitize yourself if you use a vibrator, but there are two spots in your cycle where she recommends not using that, and those are during your wet phases. So if we recall, your wet phases are going to be ovulation or ovulatory phase, and the first half of luteal. You could also use it during your bleed, but the times that you would not want, or let's say that again. She recommends not using it during your wet phases. So yes, ovulatory and first half of luteal. When you are in follicular or during your bleed, she recommends, if you want to, go ahead and bring out a vibrator. And again, part of that is just that during those wet phases, you're already more inclined, like you'll naturally get there a little bit quicker, right? You don't need a high vibratory tool to get you there. You're already going to get there a little bit quicker. So in the phases where you're pretty dry, go ahead, and if you want to boost your speed a little bit, you can, right? Okay, so here's where we're just going to briefly talk about key nutrients. So these are nutrients that are going to support your libido and orgasm. If you remember, all of these have been listed in previous lectures. So basically, in general, we want B vitamins, zinc, magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotics, and adaptogens, not only for libido and orgasm, but just for our overall hormonal health, right? A quick breakdown though, for B vitamins, those are found in nuts, seeds, meats, poultry, fish, eggs, and dark leafy vegetables, okay? The reason behind including B vitamins is that it's going to help calm stress. It's going to help prevent the breakdown of dopamine and serotonin, and basically keep you feeling energized. If we're energized, our sex drive is going to be a little higher. For zinc, meat, shellfish, legumes, and seeds, and that's going to promote healthy testosterone levels by blocking the enzyme aromatase. So aromatase naturally takes testosterone and turns it into estrogen. There's a time and a place for that, but if we can prevent the transference of testosterone into estrogen, testosterone naturally is going to leave our sex drive a little bit more intact, a little higher, right? So if we're talking about trying to increase libido and orgasm, we want to try to increase testosterone. Magnesium, we have almonds, avocados, dark leafy greens, and watermelon. Okay, and that's going to, magnesium specifically is going to reduce the amount of testosterone that'll bind to this other element. And if you are limiting the amount that can bind to that element, you're increasing the levels that are left in the bloodstream. So again, it's another way to increase the testosterone that's free floating in your bloodstream. So magnesium helps to increase free floating testosterone. It's also going to decrease, this is really important, symptoms of anxiety and depression. Okay. Next up, omega-3s, salmon, walnuts, sardines, and flax seeds. For seed cycling, flax seeds are going to be a part of that as well. Omega-3s do help prevent hormonal imbalance. If we have any hormonal imbalance, it could, of course, affect our sex drive. So that's key. It's also going to contribute to the release of dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and glutamate. And the last two, probiotics. Probiotics aren't actually going to increase your sex drive, but the connection there is that probiotics help with our gut, and our gut impacts our mood. So that's the link there. We want to make sure that our gut is healthy because that leads to improved mood. Okay. And then adaptogens, specifically maca and ashwagandha. She also lists reishi and holy basil. Those are specifically going to help support your sex drive during times of stress. Again, ashwagandha is one adaptogen that you would need to take routinely, and you might not see a change for up to 3 weeks, but if you take it daily, you'll start to see a change. Maca specifically is very much so related to sex drive and sexual hormones, sex hormones. So if you felt like you had any imbalance there in terms of testosterone and estrogen, maca would be one that you would absolutely want to include. And as far as I know, there is no like ill chemical reaction between those two. Like you can absolutely take maca and ashwagandha at the same time. I'm speaking on those two because those are the two that I'm familiar with. I'm not super familiar with reishi, which is wild because I do love mushrooms. But I'm not super familiar with that one. And I'm also not familiar with holy basil. All I'm going to say about hormonal birth control is that hormonal birth control does affect pheromones. So we naturally, males and females, have pheromones. When we're on hormonal birth control, it has been proven time and time and time and time again that our ability to sense pheromones that are naturally attracted to us is dulled. It's disguised. I know this for a fact because I dated somebody, I was on hormonal birth control, and I decided to come off hormonal birth control. I was with him for 3 years at that point, and I came off, and it was a roller coaster. I was like disgusted by him. We were living together. We were supposed to move out here to Colorado together. We did eventually, but there was a literally 3-month period where I was just, what? I'm attracted to this? Like, I was so confused, so confused. We ended up splitting. Eventually we moved out here and we stayed together for a year. And I swear it was like when I was on birth control, I was very attracted to his pheromones. When I came off of birth control, I was back into my own senses, and I no longer was actually attracted to, there was nothing wrong with him at all, but it was that blunting of my natural sense of like, I like this person, this mate, this potential, partner. And studies have proven this. So there are various reasons why women would go on to hormonal birth control. If you're somebody who's on the fence of like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about getting off, I would recommend getting off and finding a natural route of birth control, whether that's natural family planning, condoms, whatever. I would recommend trying to get off. If you're considering, go for it, get off of it. Just know that you'll have a 3-ish month period where you find your own natural rhythms again. And it's different. It's very, very different. It's a wake-up call. Our homework. If you choose to partake in some homework, I would love to not see you. I don't want to see it. You don't need to share it with me, but I would love to invite you to, if you're not somebody who's practicing any, or does not have a self-pleasure practice, or it's very rare, what if this week you did 2 to 4? If you're somebody who's already at 2 to 4, what if you did it every day? What benefits do you feel from that? Or what comes up for you, excuse me? Does it feel forced? Does it feel icky? Does it feel unnecessary? Does it feel like it's taking up your time? Are you too busy for it? Like, I think those are all fantastic questions to be asking ourselves. I know when something's off when I do not partake in a daily self-pleasure practice. When I've gone 3 days, or even a day, but like if I've gone 3 days without self-pleasure practice, I'm like, something, I'm out of touch with something. Something is not quite right, because it's naturally something that I've always enjoyed from a very, very young age. And so when it's not happening, it kind of causes me to kind of put a little bit of a timeout up of like, okay, let's just examine like what's kind of eating me up inside, like what's preoccupying my brain. If you do partake in this practice or with a partner, can you try to explore entering into that orgasmic plateau and trying to stay there for 20 minutes? If you are very familiar with edging, then awesome. So happy for you. I love that. If you're not familiar with edging, I invite you to try. What is it like to come up very, very close to coming and then pull back, and not pull back? I mean, it might happen. You might pull back where you totally like get turned off, but can you, like, what is the flow? What is the balance of like coming up and down and up and down? And you don't even need to really like have a clock out, but just like, can you just, explore? What is it like to go longer? Curiosity. Can you step away if you use a vibrator? Can you step away during your wet phases? So again, ovulatory and first part of luteal. Can you not touch the vibrator, right? Just what is it like to just use your own hands? If you don't have a vibrator, maybe get curious about investigating in one and seeing what that's like. Okay. Again, maybe not using it during the wet phases, but more just for the dry phases. The last two pieces here, exploration of tumescence. So what does your arousal feel like? What does it feel like when you become engorged? Can you describe that sensation? I think that's really, really, really important. Can you describe what it feels like for you literally to begin swelling? What does your turn on feel like? And then the last piece is that whole question about your relationship with receiving. Um, it doesn't happen just in the bedroom, but like if we can't receive in life, if somebody wants to buy you a coffee, if somebody wants to buy you dinner, if somebody gifts you something with no expectation of anything in return, how does that make you feel? Because if those situations make you feel uncomfortable, I can guarantee you that receiving in the bedroom is going to feel really uncomfortable, right? It's a big practice for me. Big, huge lessons in it already, actually, just over like the last couple of weeks. Not in the bedroom, but I know how it reflects. So really open to the exploration of that. And like, I received something really big, beautiful, awesome. And I'm questioning the things that continue to come up. I was able to receive it, but like the feelings of like, I'm not worthy of this come up, or it was too much, or I didn't do enough to receive this, right? Those types of things come up. And it's all an exploration of your mind and kind of like what your foundation is, right? Okay, that's it. The other thing I'll say is, again, if your libido seems to have disappeared, you have the tools. You have the tools in these lecture notes from a bit of today, but really from previous, of how you can find hormonal balance. Because a lot of times if our libido is gone, if it's vanished for a little bit, it's either going to be stress. That's number one. Be real with yourself. Do you have too much on your plate? What can you say no to? If it's not stress, likely there is a hormonal imbalance. So check your systems, check the places: blood sugar, adrenals, organs of elimination, right? What does your blood look like? That's going to tell you again, progesterone, estrogen, where are those levels at? We have the tools in our pocket right now. We got to do a little research. We don't know them right off the top of our head. Got to do a little research, but the notes have it all. Okay. We can have beautiful freaking lives, including beautiful sex lives. We absolutely can. It's all within our power. All right, I'm going to hit, we're going to end the record. I'll stick around for some questions. If you're watching this at home and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are wrapping up here soon. We got 2 more weeks. Again, I want to invite you to provide any and all feedback. Okay, I will have like a little survey coming up, but any and all feedback. Again, as somebody who is part of this first cohort, I know that it's only going to get better, and I would love for you to be a part of it as well. So you will have access to cohorts that come after you. Okay, I want to always be updating and yeah, just keep editing these slides, these lectures, these talks, and making changes as I go, as I learn, and making it even more digestible for us all. Okay. All right. Have a good one. We'll go ahead and end this recording.